Where you been all these years? I don't know. I remember hearing that from Mr. Collins earlier, before I was elected. And I just said, wow, I think I was in that side of the room. And I said, wow, I mean, why not? It just, basic common sense issues, right? I mean, why wouldn't you have somebody that plays the sports that you play on the team that you want to win?
And please come back and let us know why it's not common sense.
And I just want to just add one thing, that I did draft a letter in draft format, and after meeting with the superintendent recently, and I wanted to reach out to Mr. Collins to just make sure I write the right thing, but asking the governor to look at that as an appropriate measure of trying to make Massachusetts a more successful in teaching, but more importantly, in providing what is the real resources that teachers need to provide the best education possible. Because I don't think nobody's in here to do something different, right? The other thing that was very important to me, so I started doing some research, was who's making money off these tests. So I'm waiting for a report that was promised to me about major companies that are making these monies, and not only in Massachusetts, they're making money all over.
John Oliver did that report for you already. It's a 20-minute YouTube video. You can catch it.
It's not even just the United States.
Seriously.
If you go on to YouTube and type in John Oliver testing, he did a great. He's got the report all covered for you.
Okay. Well, good.
It'll be
You
worth
can
watching.
do that.
And you laugh, and cry.
And then, on that note, I did push for the Reading Recovery Program, and I think it's an essential and important program. One of the greatest programs, and I don't know if my colleagues know about it, but what I just recently went to a Reading Recovery school, and that test, or that assessment tool, as they call them now, you cannot charge for it, because that was created by somebody who said, we are not going to make this a money-making tool. So I'm getting more research on that, because I think if we want to provide tests for people, and people are making millions and billions of dollars actually, then we need to maybe look at that as, is it the right formula of testing? The 135 testing that you highlighted, it's just, it's outrageous. It's like, I'll just go back to sports and baseball, 168 games in a year. I mean, 183, and they're playing into September. It doesn't make sense. They're going back down. So sometimes, like the senator said, we need to be thinking about what is it in this century that kids need to be successful, but more importantly, I think, what is it in the next century? And we need to prepare them for tomorrow, not really for today. We're late. The tests are not allowing teachers to do an appropriate job, and I, again, going back to the sports thing, if the kids ain't having fun while they're learning to play a sport, that sport is not important to them. And if that's happening in our schools, and I know it's happening because I'm not only listening to you, I'm also hearing it from kids, and I'm also a parent that has kids in public schools, that have been in charter schools, that have been now recruited to a very very expensive private school because of basketball. So I've seen the differences, and I've seen the class sizes in the different schools. And I see the amount of parenting that's involved in one school opposed to another, and I see the large demands that are placed on you unfairly, in my opinion, and I'm not here to bully anybody. I'll tell you like it is. If I agree with you, I will, and if I don't, I don't. But I see the unfair mandates that I did not see when I was running the election.
You're welcome.
Well, look, I want to thank everybody for being here. Let me just start off by saying a few thank yous.
let me start by saying it's kind of hard to believe I'm the senior guy here. Right? I don't know where that came from. We got common sense Carlos here. That's good stuff, so we can't go wrong. But seriously, I want to just take the opportunity to thank David for his, his leadership over the years, and certainly been a true asset to me in my office. Been up to my office a number of times, been on the phone a number of times, emails a number of times, and there's no stronger advocate than David, and certainly Bert, and everybody in this room works very, very hard. I know Chris is going to follow footsteps in there. Got some big shoes to follow, and there are certainly issues that come up on a day-to-day basis, and David's always been there, whether it's through email and telephone calls or coming to the office. You can't avoid him. I'm on Boston Road in Wilbraham, so he's there on a regular basis, and I welcome him with open arms. But David, I want to thank you for your advocacy and your leadership and your friendship, because I think, as Brian said, not only do you come up and talk about an issue, but you explain why it's important, and I think that's critically important as we move forward, because a lot of these issues aren't easy, one-sided. I mean, we all may think very simply they are one-sided, but both sides of the issues are somewhat, nebulous, if you will, sometimes, and there's always opposition in there, and it's good to have that sort of ammunition, if you will, to be able to go, whether it's to the committee chair or to House leadership on a different level, to be able to say, look, this is why this is important, and David always comes with the facts, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you. I know Kathy's back here from the MTA. I want to certainly thank her. Now, coming out, now you know what the trip is, back and forth on a regular basis. Won't be so bad getting out of here as it is out of Boston at 6 o'clock. But I do, I work closely with, obviously the MTA and Tim here with the SCA, and I think it's important that we have open dialogue. And I think, as was said here before, we were here during the election, certainly asking for your support. I'm no stranger to this room and to a lot of the people in this room, but I think that speaks volumes. I mean, we're here not only obviously during an election time, but after the election. And I think that's critically important because, there's a number of issues that are obviously in front of us here. There's going to be more issues that are going to come down the pike, if you will, in future times. But I think that, that the delegation, by and large, speaking for myself and I think everybody here, and some that aren't here, I think we're very responsive, we're very receptive, and we, I think, know and cherish the value of education, and we know the difficult job that each and every one of you are doing, each and every one of you has done and continue to do. We get it. I mean, I graduated, from Springfield Public Schools, the last class out of classical, so it goes back a few years. I was actually reading over at Friedman the other day, and I ran into a girl I haven't seen in almost 30 years now, believe it or not. So she's then you go to classical. And it was pretty cool to meet her and see her again. I haven't, like I said, seen her, but she's teaching there, doing a terrific job. So I mean, I know the value of public education. I certainly continue to support that as much as I can. I'm not going to go through this list one by one. I think we've talked about them. If you check, I'm on most of these, if not all of these, as a co-sponsor. So I support it as they come up, one by one. I think it's critically important that we all continue to contact the different chairs. Most of these are in education, the Committee on Education and whatnot. So, some, the retirement bills and public service and whatnot, but I think it's critically important that when these come up, and David and Crystal know moving forward, obviously Kathy knows that we need to make sure that we, as a unit, as a body, continue, whether it's written testimony, whether it's going down, a lot of times it's tough, difficult and tough to get to Boston during the day to testify personally, but again, emails, written testimony, not only from the committee members and the co-sponsors, but teachers and people that are affected by it, so they get a whole sort of realm in terms of why this is important, why it needs to be done, so at that committee level, the committee can vote to move it forward to the next step. So that's important. So again, I mean, I'm pleased to be here. I think this is a great dialogue. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. Learned a lot, as we do every time. Last time we were here, we had certainly had issues with the the kindergarten grants. We were able to get that money back. I tried with a number of my colleagues. We did get that money back, which was critically important. We did try to remove that testing language, but that was a tough sell. I was in there, I filed one of the amendments with a number of co-sponsors here to remove that assessment testing. Unfortunately, it was a little bit sort of late, if you will, in terms of trying to bring that up. The big thing was to get the money back. We were able to get the money back, and I think we continue that dialogue on that assessment testing on that level. But again, I think the big part was getting the money back, and we were able to do that. So we're going to continue to be in there pitching. I mean, I'm there on a day-to-day basis. You got a good delegation from Western Mass. Certainly, we all work together. We value your input. We value your service. And I thank you again for being here. And I think we should do this every once in a while. You know, it's good stuff, and it's important that I think we have this dialogue, and so we know the issues that come up, because you know, the election cycle comes up very, very fast. But we need to be prepared during the sort of midterm, if you will, to make sure that we're able, the mid-year, to make sure that we're able to be able to have the ammunition, to have the facts, and to be able to put forth, you know, the best arguments moving forward to move these bills. I mean, there's about almost 7,000 bills, if you will, that have gotten filed, and everybody's advocating. We finished the House budget. I know Eric said tomorrow the Senate budget's coming out, but we finished the House budget at the end of April, so we're sort of done with that realm. We're waiting to see where they come out. You know, there's a little bit of differences on some of the issues between the House and the Senate. Some of that stuff will get worked out in conference committee, but these front center, you know, sort of the other than retirement, some of the non-funding, non-monetary bills, I think are critically important. So again, dialogue is important. Thank you all for your time, and I'm glad to be here.
I'll bring it home then. Well, first of all, Dave, I just want to thank you for putting this together. I was actually in Boston since early this morning, so I probably got the tire eyes that you were. But when Bert called me up late last week and said, Jose, I need you to come to this meeting. It's important, and I need to hear where we're coming from. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to be in Boston, but I'm going to make sure that I leave early enough to get here, because it is important to me. I've been here before during elections and after elections, and it's more than about elections. It's about supporting the people that really the future of our city is in their hands, because you are the ones that provide the education for our kids. Ms. Kennedy back there made the comparison between the military's evaluation system and the teacher's evaluation. And as a former military man myself, as a veteran, people often say thank you for your service. But I wanted to say thank you for your service, because oftentimes teachers are under attack, not just in Springfield, but across the nation. So I want to thank you, and particularly the younger teachers, because I know for a fact that less and less young people are going into the education field, simply because at the end of the day, while they have the commitment and the heart and the talent, they don't want to be targets. And it's as simple as that. So again, I just want to thank each and every one of you for fighting the good fight. I have always been against standardized testing. When actually the MCAS first came out, when I was in the school committee back in the mid-1990s, and I was against it. Not because I'm against measurements, but that test, standardized tests, just simply are inherently we're biased, particularly culturally biased, and it was a one-size-fits-all kind of mentality, and without exceptions for people who have language barriers or who are in special education, you still needed to take the test. And I just felt that was setting up a whole new generation for failure, and so I was completely against that. And frankly, I apologize. I don't know much about PARC. I've gotten bits and pieces of it as I've moved along, but certainly everything I've heard, it hasn't been receiving a resounding support either from people who know better, and that's the people who implement the test, you the teachers. So that's where I stand from that. Now, I'll just tell you a little personal story as well. I mean, my family moved to Springfield in the mid-1950s. I was 1 year old, so by the time I went to kindergarten, you know, I was bilingual. I spoke English. I watched a lot of TV shows and everything. I learned English, and I lived in an environment. And now is the time when you didn't have English language learning programs or bilingual education or what have you. So, okay, by the time I hit kindergarten, I spoke English fairly well. By the time I was in the second and third grade, I remember just one story. It was my teacher, Mrs. Brennan. I think later she got married, Mrs. Van or something other. Annabelle was her name. But she asked me. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I talked with her. I know nothing about what you're going to say.
But she, at one point, you know, teachers always ask you.
Did you square dance, by the way?
We did. Those
Big
yeah, we did all that stuff. but she asked me, Jose, can you go get me the vase, please? I had no idea what the vase was, but back in those days, they had this long pole with a hook at the end that you use it to raise the windows, right? And this is Carew Street School. And so I brought it back that pole. That's what the vase was. You know, yeah, true story, I still sometimes chuckle over that. That's just an example about badging these tests. Well, one of these questions on these tests was about a yacht. I mean, I remember some Puerto Ricans would ask me, what's a yacht? You know,
What's a yacht speed? What's a yacht?
So again, culturally based testing, it's just not good. It's creating many kids to fail. The other thing that we all know is for a fact, and no dispersions on anyone, but frankly, there's been white flight from our city schools. You know, and whoever can afford a parochial school or a private school or an out of district school or just to get the hell out of Dodge is doing that. And what you have is left is a minority majority in our Springfield public schools, kids of color, many of who come with issues of poverty and issues of safety in their neighborhoods. You know, and I always say it's difficult to go to school and be a good learner, you know, when at night you can't get any sleep because of the violence or the an unstable environment. And those are some of the kids that we have. They come, when they come to school, they don't leave that baggage behind. And then you're in the schools face to face having to confront that, because we've also lost a lot of the supports in our schools. Again, I used to be a Chapter 1 adjustment counselor under Dr. Bill Brady many years ago, and we had more resources back then. I'm talking like the mid-1980s. You have a lot less counseling staff these days in the schools, and a lot less of those supports. So again, I know the student population that you deal with, I know how difficult it is. I know that you have to be everything to everybody, and I know that you feel. And I know that you spend your own money from your own pocket because the schools don't have the resources to provide you. Again, my wife worked as a special education teacher for 30 years in the public schools. I know that oftentimes, you know, she'd go shopping and, you know, for our kids, and then she'd also go shopping for 30 other kids as well. It's just the way that you know, if you're in this field, it's because you know, you have a good heart, you feel, and you want to make a difference. So certainly with me, I'm low-hanging fruit here. I'm easy pickings. Like Angelo, I already co-sponsored most, if not all, of these bills. I'll echo what Senator Lusser said in terms of vocational programming. I mean, I've had the opportunity I went to Chicopee Comprehensive not that long ago because they got some new STEM funding, and I saw the kind of high-tech manufacturing equipment that they have there. I said, wow, I'm impressed. I mean, I certainly couldn't run it myself, but I saw those kids running those things. All that stuff is just very technical and computerized. But I also have in my district R.G. Miller, which is precision manufacturing. And I went down there and I did a tour as well as many other places, and they tell me we can't find the skilled workforce, you know, to run this. That's vocational. Those are vocational jobs, making $30 to $35 an hour. You know, so we do need. I mean, not every kid is meant to go to to college and graduate school. I mean, they're just not. That doesn't make them less of a person. You know, and so I think we need to provide those opportunities. Like my colleague, Representative Gonzalez said, you know, a teacher on the desk board. I'm not even going to talk about that. But what else is to say? I mean, what I will say is that I will advocate as much as I can with the authority or we have within the legislature to push for that. Again, it's a no-brainer, makes complete common sense. Transparency, investing in higher education. I was also an adjunct professor of psychology at Elms College for several years, and definitely I know the issues that are inherent in that, and some of it even involving issues of tenure. You know, so it's a raw deal that folks get, and we do need to invest in higher education. At the State House today, I was fortunate enough to be with a group of kids from many of your districts, and they're participants in the Upward Bound program, which has made such a big difference in their lives. So one of those kids was I guess goes to the program at SCCC as well. So again, education, you know what, Latinos are known for playing baseball, and Carlos is making some sports analogies. I've never played sports at all, you know, but you know, like I said, we can't all play baseball, basketball, or whatever. You know, education really is the key that makes the difference for people to break a cycle of poverty. I've got 8 brothers and sisters. There's 9 of us. My parents always stressed the need for us to go to school, and when we didn't, you know, we certainly heard about it, and not necessarily verbally, but sometimes physically. We heard about it, and 8 of us, we all have some college education, and again, that's what really has made a difference. Good teachers. Again, I went to Carew Street School. I went to Chestnut Junior High School. I went to my first year at Tech, freshman year, and then I graduated from the High School of Commerce in 1972. I have great teachers, I really do, and it's because of them, you know, that I'm here today and have whatever level of success I've achieved. So again, I started with a thank you, and I'll end with a thank you.
I'll do one little story about Angelo. One of our early meetings, Angelo was talking about somebody in town and about how he's asking for this, and this. I looked at him and said, Angelo, that guy has an R next to his name, you have a D. So it's time we start acting like Ds. And I'll tell you, Angelo acts like a Democrat. He co-sponsored, I think, 11 of these 15 bills. Things that I don't deserve. I mean, Bert always gets people here and always orders the right pizza. I enjoyed always working with Bert. Tim is always there for me to call and to run ideas off. If there's a better president than Brian Balicki as a Ludlow president, I don't know where he is or she is. Pat, who's my pal at Minichog, is always there for me. He always shows up, makes more phone calls than anybody ever know. There are faces in here I see all the time when I ask for phone calling or coming to meetings, and I appreciated all that you did. I think it's been 5 years we've been doing this? Something like 5 years, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you for coming. I think we made a lot of progress today, and I know that Christine and Bert are going to keep going, and maybe I'll come back and to the next LPAT meeting. Thank you.